Founder Square, the Neshoba County Fair. The sun is getting a little higher in the sky there. It's hot, it's humid, as we say, but it is the Neshoba County Fair. And joining us now on the set, our good friend, the Secretary of State of the great state of Mississippi, Michael Watson.
That's right.
Good morning there, Mr. Secretary.
A little humid is right.
Little humid. But you being a coast guy, this is nothing new for you.
Absolutely not, but I'd rather have my toes in the sand.
I hear you. I hear you. All right, so what'd you talk about today? So you spoke earlier today.
We did. We were at 1010 and really talked about, Gerard, the success we had in 2020. And if you look at coming in as a statewide elected official, my first term there, not only did we have a contested presidential election, but you put COVID in the middle of that. You talk about a hurricane just 5 days before, and I really talked about how we were able to be successful. And it was because of our partnerships with our circuit clerks, with our elections commissioners, the great team that we have. One of our Neshoba County's finest, Carla Reed Thornhill. Carla's here with me today, our chief of staff. Just a great leader of people and just good people up and down the line of the Secretary of State's office. But it was those teamwork efforts that really made the difference. And then we talked about the regulatory burden that you and I have talked about quite some time. The Tackle the Tape initiative, making sure that businesses are able to survive, not only survive, but thrive in Mississippi. And to continue that work, to plow the ground, to make sure there are more opportunities for our sons and our daughters to stay here in Mississippi. And we're gonna keep doing that because I love this state. I love this country. And when we can do things in Mississippi that are actually leading the country, like Tackle the Tape, like our initiative to make sure that first responders are able to use our U of Power provisions to vote when they're out of their home counties. Things like that we're taking across the country to make sure that they understand Mississippi's leading the way, and we're going to continue doing that.
Well, and we appreciate that effort. So the Tackle the Tape effort, you got that kicked off pretty quick after you took office, right? I mean, you understood that is just critical to efficient operations of government, but more importantly, making it easy for people to set up shop, do business, grow the economy here in the state of Mississippi.
Absolutely, and we talked about that on the campaign trail about the Occupational Licensing Review Commission, which is a great deal, and it's overseeing 29 boards and commissions. By the way, we're about to launch a new effort with that.
Right.
It's called 29 by 29, where we're going to partner with many of our conservative friends, think tanks, to get them to review every single regulation under those 29 boards and commissions. So then we can go and make recommendations to the OLRC of what things that we need to cut. So thankfully, the legislature had a look-back provision where now we can go back into the past, and every regulation is on the table that we can cut. Colby Williams does a phenomenal job in our office, just a brilliant young mind. He's here with us at the fair today, but Colby really has taken that effort on with the OLRC. Not only that, but Tackle the Tape. And so we saw OLRC coming into office, and we thought, how can we expound on that, make it a bigger initiative? And that's where Tackle the Tape came from. And our goal there is to cut those regulations, again, making sure that businesses can thrive and do great things in Mississippi. But the key is making sure that Mississippians are aware of that so they can then report to us those regulations and statutes that we can then go cut. So it takes all of us, and working together as a team, and that's really an effort that we're pushing forward. And, again, Colby's doing a fantastic job with that. What
are you doing with respect to our friends over in the Capitol, a place you spent 12 years at, right? So what are you doing as far as those guys are concerned with the Tackle the Tape initiative and then other priorities for the Secretary of State's office?
Yeah, so, look, we've had some great partnerships over there, be it Senator Kaufman, the legislation he got through the last couple of years. Becky has done a wonderful job in getting through, I think it was this past year, the reciprocity language. Becky Curry from Brookhaven, and having those relationships from my time in the legislature with those men and women who do a great job, and having those relationships, being able to support their efforts on a statewide basis has really been successful. So we're seeing some really good successes with that. And on the Tackle the Tape page, you can go and see some of the successes that we've had, and it talks about legislation, things that we're supporting that our legislators are doing a great job at. And so I want to pat them on the back every chance we get. But that's a big deal. As you know, we've talked about elections and election reform, making sure that the integrity of the process is upheld. We're coming back this coming year with two pieces, and one you and I have talked about quite some time now is making sure that only United States citizens are voting in our elections, period. And people say, Michael, look, that's a conservative idea. Well, maybe it is. I don't look at it as a Republican or Democrat. I look at it as an American issue, as a Mississippi issue, period. It's the law. And so we're going to work on that. And one of the things that we heard, and I want to be very clear on this, one of the things we heard is, hey, it's just not that big of an issue in Mississippi. Well, when you look at 90 ICE detainees getting dropped off in Natchez, when you look at what's going on our southern border, when you look at going to DPS to do the research to know that there have been close to 100 attempts of late where legal immigrants are trying to register to vote, it is an issue. And so I'm not going to, the people of Mississippi aren't going to buy that, hey, this isn't that big of an issue. It is.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to, go full force to the legislature and hope we can get that done this coming year.
Yeah. And so, we can't get you out of here without talking about the federal government trying to essentially take over the elections process in the United States. But before I get to that, I got to ask you this. Have you received any pressure from the Biden administration with respect to our voting laws, our voting restrictions? They certainly don't stand the test of the left. You see what's happening in Texas, what's happening in Georgia. Ours are maybe a little restrictive in some areas than theirs, just a little bit. But in general, I don't think they're happy unless it's everybody gets to vote and it's universal mail-in balloting and ballot harvesting. It's the only way they're happy.
That's where they want to go. And one of their favorite talking people in the state, Bobby Harrison, wrote an article this past weekend and basically said, look, it's so hard to vote in Mississippi. But Bobby did not include that we had 113,000 new registered voters in 2020, that we had record number turnout. He didn't include the facts. He just wanted to drive this narrative. But no, we've not had the pressure from the federal government to do anything with our legislation, with our voting scheme here in Mississippi. And we're looking at ways, again, our goal, and you've heard this quite some time now, is to make it easier to vote, harder to cheat. But ultimately, our focus is on the integrity of the process, period.
Right.
So we can have discussions if you want to about whatever you want to have them about. But again, at the end of the day, if it doesn't uphold the integrity of the process, we're not going to do it, period.
It's just these nuances are certainly subject for debate, for civil debate and discussion. Let's sort that out and work it out. But just saying, no, we absolutely got to have a universal mail-out ballots and ballot harvesting. That's just, and no IDs, et cetera. And vote 24 hours a day, like almost any time of year, right? Anything less than that is restricted. That's just a non-starter.
Well, and that's the left's playbook. They take it to extremes. They don't want to have a debate on the issues. They don't want to have an intelligent debate on what really is the problem here. Is there a problem? Number one, let's address the problem.
Is there a problem?
If we have one.
Right.
Number two, let's have an intelligent debate as adults. What's good? If I don't think something's good, you shouldn't say, well, you know what, he just hates people and don't want them to vote. That's not true.
No.
So let's have an intelligent adult conversation, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
I know what I believe in, so I can have a conversation with anybody in the country.
Well, it almost suggests, we don't think we can win legitimately. I mean, that may not be what they say directly, but sort of they're masking, I think, that view. We got to have this or we can't win. We can't prevail.
Every single time. They do not want to talk about the facts. What is there a problem? They don't want to address the really an adult conversation.
Right.
They just want to say, oh, well, you're racist. You don't like people. You don't want them to vote. You hate dogs and kids.
That's the default.
Yeah.
Man, it's incredible. All right, so any legislative priorities coming up for you in the next session that you're working with the legislature on?
Yeah, again, we'll be focusing on the integrity of the voting process, the two pieces of legislation we pushed last year.
Yeah.
There are a few other things that we're looking at right now. Scrap metal is one of them. Do we need to make some changes with that? We met some industry leaders talking with them, and I think that's the important piece for Mississippi to know. You don't just walk out there and throw, hey, this is a great idea. You sit down with the folks that you're going to impact and say, hey, is there an issue? Is this something that we should move forward with? And if they say absolutely not, maybe we should pull back some.
Yeah.
So it's about listening to Mississippians. It's about working together as a team. We've got a great state. We've got a beautiful future going forward. And again, it's about making sure that everyone is included for all Mississippians. And that's what we're trying to do.
Totally agree. I know you've built a great organization. You got lots of your team members here present with the familiar MW shirts.
Off the clock.
Off the clock. How are you doing with respect to your staff? Are you able to fill all the positions, keep everything rolling that you need?
One of the hard things that we have is competing with. Just this past week, matter of fact, I almost lost one of my all-stars to DPS. DPS is not subject to the same salary cap that we are. So I'm competing with state agencies to keep talent, which is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
So we're talking, matter of fact, I talked to Briggs Hobson yesterday here at the fair.
Yeah.
I said, look, man, this is something that we can't compete with. We're capped at my salary, $90,000 a year.
Yeah.
I can't pay anybody else any more than that. So when you've got an attorney that's a rock star, that can go make $130,000 somewhere else.
Can't get them for that.
Why would they come to the Secretary of State's office? Yeah. That being said, we have got some dedicated public servants who care more about, hey, what can I do to make this state better than they do about cashing in and getting a huge paycheck.
Yeah.
And so we've got a wonderful team, and we've built a great family atmosphere for them to know that I care about them. This isn't just a job to me. This is our team. Let's build those relationships. I want them to know that they matter, and every day you see it in our in our work.
Your agency arguably interacts with the private sector more than any other. And so, to a great extent, it just makes sense for you to operate in that regard, which is really consistent with good, solid practices in the private sector.
Yeah, one of the best things, Gerard, we talk to thousands of folks every day, and I tell every one of our folks on the front lines, listen to me.
Yeah.
Every conversation you have, you never know the impact you're going to have with someone.
Exactly right.
You make sure that they have a great experience with government because we work for them.
Makes total sense. Appreciate you coming on there, Mr. Secretary. We'll talk to you soon. Always a pleasure.
Let's go tee it up.
Let's do it.